Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Beyond the Facade. I'm Dona Junta, and welcome back to our 26th episode.
Hi everyone, I'm Sabrina. Sabrina the grown-up witch.
Yes, we miss everybody. It's been a hot minute, maybe a month and a half or more. So we wanted to come back pretty strong with a pretty interesting topic today. We're going to be talking about nothing in LA. It's a place called Camarillo State Mental Hospital in Ventura County, and maybe some of you guys know about it, maybe some not, but we're going to learn about it today. And we do have a special guest. If you'd like to introduce yourself.
My name is Wayne Poe, and I make paranormal documentaries, and I'm a paranormal investigator. Maybe I'll make other documentaries about other subjects too in the future, but right now that's what I do.
Yes, thank you. And we wanted to discuss this topic, and Sabrina brought it up because it's been about, well, I thought it was 10 years, but it's 9 years since there was a film that Wayne made regarding this place Camarillo, and we're going to talk all about it today, and get into details of the history, the paranormal, and all kinds of stuff. Anyhow, Sabrina, if you want to uh kind of bring us up to par with maybe going back in time with your spiel on Camarillo State Hospital.
Yes. Okay, you guys, about 2 years ago, 3 years ago during COVID, I did a little write-up because this place is near and dear to my heart. Wayne Poe, our friend, he's our dear friend, my dear friend for many years. And we, as paranormal investigators, as I'm sure you guys remember, have investigated Camarillo many times in the past. So I made a little post on my personal Instagram 3 years back, 2 years back, and so I'm just gonna read off of it because it's pretty uh it's pretty thorough, and so it'll help you guys paint a picture. So, you ever heard of Camarillo State Mental Hospital? It is now currently Cal State University, Channel Islands. Is it haunted? Most definitely. Cam, as we affectionately call it, was opened in 1936. This hospital was erected to treat a variety of mental illnesses. CAM was closed in 1997 due to low patient numbers, and rising costs per patient. One can never know fully of the human atrocities and suffering that the structures and the property have bared witness to. I've personally met a few former patients, purposely and on accident. Their stories are all morbid. My dear friend and fellow paranormal investigator, Mr. Wayne Poe, made a documentary on Camarillo named Hotel Camarillo. This documentary has 10 plus years of investigative footage and EVP evidence from multiple paranormal teams in and around Southern California and Ventura. Teams such as Santa Barbara Paranormal, Ventura Haunts, 3 a.m. Paranormal, and many more teams and a plethora of freelance investigators have all contributed their findings and experiences. I can tell you that this land has a tragic, looming presence about it, and one doesn't have to look far to understand why there is so much darkness, attachment, and stagnation. This brainchild of Wayne's has been seen and viewed at HorrorCon and Scare Los Angeles, at the E.P. Foster Library in Ventura, and other horror and paranormal conventions. It's on Amazon Prime. Look at Hotel Camarillo. Movies, there's to name some movies and movie scenes shot at Camarillo State Hospital. There's the Snake Pit. There's an NSYNC music video, Bottle Rocket, Parts of the Ring, Buffy the Vampire Slayer, just a couple to name a few. The famous jazz saxophonist and composer Charlie Parker was a patient at CAM and even wrote a song called Relaxing at Camarillo. Steve Clem Grogan, a Manson family associate, was sent to CAM for 90 days. It is rumored that the song Hotel California by the Eagles was written about Camarillo State Mental Hospital. And then there's been a book made that's called Keeper of the Keys by a nurse named Nadine Scala. Is that her last name? Is it Scalia or Scala? It's Scolla. So go ahead and look that up. And it was about her experiences that, and I went and what she witnessed while working at Camarillo State Hospital.
Okay, thank you for that. That's awesome. So there's a lot going on, just the history, but also the paranormal linkage to that, which Wayne's gonna kind of delve into that. So wherever you want to start, Wayne, whether you want to start about when you first connected with the hospital or why that endeavor, and then maybe get us into the history of the hospital.
The first time I was even aware of the hospital for paranormal is I was following one group. My first documentary, I was following different groups in Southern California. One of them was 3 a.m. Paranormal. I just started following them. Actually, I started following a subgroup that came from 3 a.m. Paranormal, was Paranormal Housewives. And they were at Linda Vista Hospital. And 3 a.m. was there, and they told me, if you think this place is crazy, you haven't seen anything until you go to Camarillo. The Camarillo is super haunted, you know. I was, oh, great, let's go, you know. So the next time they went, they invited me, and that's how they went a lot of times. And I
What
even
year
went
was that when you first went?
2010. That's when I started the first documentary, Night Stalkers. And I found out it's kind of infamous for paranormal investigators because some kind of want to, you know, say it's their territory and don't go in there. You're not allowed to go in there. Yet everybody goes in there and investigates. So that's how I found out about it. And everybody went so much, I decided to make a second documentary just about Camarillo. Everybody talked about it because it's so active, and it's probably one of the most active places in, at least in Southern California, that I know of. I mean, we went in there. You can get easy 10 EVPs on a trip on a good night. You know, I'm not gonna say every single time you went, but most of the time you went, there's like 10 good EVPs, and doors slamming every once in a while and things like that. You know,
For people that don't know, just real quick, what's an EVP?
Electronic voice phenomena.
electronic voice phenomena.
So what does that
EVP.
do
It's a
quickly?
voice most of the time you don't really hear when you're recording, and then when you play it back, you hear this voice. Who was that? You know, who said that? No one said that when we were recording. You know, what is that? And so on investigations, you'll ask questions to the air. You know, like who's here? Can you say my name? What color is an apple? Things like that, and see what kind of hits you get, you know, on your recorder when you play it back.
Got it.
Or like, let's say you're in a haunted location, and we'll use Camarillo State Hospital for an example. When you're there, a good way to know that you're connecting with a possible spirit that was perished there or is connected to the land there, and you ask them things that are Camarillo specific, and then you go back and you listen to your recorder later on, and the evidence and the answers are specific to Camarillo. And that's a way to verify that you're having this whole phenomenon working through your electronic devices.
Okay, thank you. That was a good explanation. Because I mean, I only learned about it myself through you guys too. But I mean, I know it was like a gadget that you guys use.
Yes, some of us are more gadgety than others. Wayne being one of them, my friend Melissa too. It's like they have gadgets, like you can
Well, I'm
inspect
an
your gadget.
open-minded psychic. I'm sorry, I said psychic. I can't believe it. I'm an open-minded skeptic.
Yeah, because I was gonna say, Wayne, I remember you saying that you want to see hard evidence. So Camarillo kind of did it for you during that time, like actually presented that evidence for you. It sounds like.
Yeah, a lot of it happened at Camarillo, because when I started the first documentary, I was a skeptic. I didn't really believe in all the ghost stuff, and some of the early groups that I followed kind of reinforced that, because it seemed very silly to me, and nothing was happening that I couldn't explain, or people have maybe some problems. Maybe they're hearing and seeing things that only they can hear and see, you know. But then when I got more to the more serious groups, they were taking it seriously. They were debunking. Okay, that was this. I scraped my shoe against this. That's what that sound was. This and that. They debunk stuff, and they tag things like, tag this. I heard something. Tag this for later, so we can listen to it later. It got more and more professional. So people that have done this a lot, they have like a protocol, so they can check on what could be a phenomenon and what can't. Not it's the difference between an amateur and I don't want to say professional. There's no professionals in the paranormal, but it's the difference between someone hearing a little scrape or something. Oh my God, that's a ghost! To someone that's really wants to hear something that could be a phenomenon, not just something like, you know, how old buildings always have sounds coming in. You know, it could be birds, it could be rodents, anything. You know, so it's
You
something
want to
a
rule
little
out,
more concrete.
yeah, you want to rule out things that could have been it instead of jumping to
Yeah,
conclusions, I guess.
Yeah, and not to put words in Wayne's mouth, but I think that at least knowing you and investigating in different spaces with you, Camarillo is one of those places that you go and there's just things that happen that cannot be explained. So
right.
I think some of the things that you might have witnessed there. I know that you and I've investigated. I don't know if you and I have investigated Cam more than a couple times together. I know we have separately, but I'm from my understanding from the documentary and knowing you as a friend, there's a lot of stuff at Camarillo that happens to almost every investigator that I've known that just cannot be explained.
Yeah,
I'll give you for instance, one of my first examples of Camarillo State Hospital, um, climbing in a window. Uh, we sat down and we had a little EVP circle, like a session. There was probably like maybe 5 or 6 of us. And we were sitting there and we rolled the ball like do you guys remember those balls? The big in the grocery store where they have the big metal things and there's all these like bouncy balls inside of them and you
Yeah.
pull
yeah,
one. So someone brought a ball and we rolled it, not bounced it, we rolled it down the hallway. And to my knowledge, in the dark, it looked like the hallway was flat and it rolled with the same trajectory as, with the speed that was rolled. And it came back bouncing towards us. And there was absolutely no one there. And you can't really explain those things. There's no wind. There's nothing to explain why it would, from a rolling sensation and the 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 speed of it rolling would have been from us pushing it. So by the time it would have gone as far as it would have gone, it would have definitely slowed down in speed to then come back bouncing at us. There's just no way to explain little things like that. And that's just one example. There's so many. And if you watch Wayne's documentary, he goes over a lot of them. He has, explains a lot of them. But that's something that I personally experienced myself.
Yeah, and I think you had some questions for Wayne kind of regarding his anything else on his connection.
Well, I think I'd want Wayne to explain, like, what do you think about Camarillo? Do you have any theories? Why do you think that Camarillo is so haunted?
when I first started going there, I was just following everybody because I didn't want to insert myself into the story. So I just stayed behind everybody and filmed. And at first, I really didn't see or hear anything out of the ordinary. Like the first time I went, the group I was with, 3 a.m. Did you hear that? You must have heard that. Did you hear that? And I said, no. Did you see that? You must have seen that. It was right in front of you. No. you know. So it I wanted to see something, and I really legitimately wanted to hear something. I just wanted to go like everybody else. Yeah, I heard it too, guys. I didn't want to do that. Um, the funny thing is, though, every little thing they were pointing out to me that I didn't hear or see. When I finally saw something, it was you know, when you get tired, you see those little stars flying in front of your eyes, the little white those little white stars. It almost look like fireflies, but real fast.
Like in cartoons?
Um,
No, I
no,
think you
kind
mean
of,
like
yeah.
if
But
you look
when
up
you
at
get
the
tired, you can
sun.
see that, huh?
I don't know. I don't get tired and see those, but sometimes if you look up at like a direct like light, like if the
Yeah,
sun or something, sometimes you come back like and look at whatever you're looking at and it kind of has like shine, like little
y-
pieces of dots of light in it. That's the
yeah.
best way I can explain
Well,
it. I've never
I
gotten
used to
tired and saw that.
I saw that, but I saw it down a hallway in the middle of the hallway, not in front of my eyes. So it was down the hallway. And at first, I thought maybe someone was playing a trick with us with a laser pointer, but I've never seen a white laser pointer before. So I was looking at it for a while, and I was trying to film it, and nothing came on my film. I mean, looking at it, and then one of the 3 a.m. people said, what are you seeing?" And I was told about the lights. And oh, that happens when something tries to manifest itself. It's like they've seen it so many times they don't really care. Oh, so what? So what do you not basically like that, So the first thing I saw was something they've seen all the time, and they're just dismiss it. They're not even going to try to capture it again.
That
So
makes sense. That's weird.
Hmm.
I've experienced something similar to what you're describing, but instead of the white lights, they were like little blue lights. We call them like fairy lights, and
Yeah,
they're similar to what you're explaining, except that in my experience, they don't really have a shape. It doesn't feel like anything's particularly manifesting, except maybe that's the way that they're manifesting and interacting with us. But it's always very weird. And they're always very small, like towards the bottom half of your body. So everyone says they're kids, but
yeah. They're very tiny, like they're just like fireflies, except fireflies move slow like this. But these lights move fast, and they're little tiny lights. And I have seen a blue one or two, and I saw a red one time, and I tried to debunk it because we were on some of the floors still have linoleum on them, and some of our recorders have a red light that comes up when you're recording. And I'm thinking maybe it's the reflection of the recorder on the floor that I'm seeing, but it wasn't, because it was above, it was manifesting, for lack of a better word, above the floor. So I tried to debunk a lot of this stuff and I couldn't. So I tried to think of everything.
Yeah. So now I do want to get back to the paranormal because I'm curious to ask how it looked when you guys were going. But let's just jump into like maybe learning the history of what originally it was when, before our time. Like if you could maybe share some brief history of Camarillo State Mental Hospital, kind of like paint a picture for us of what this place was.
It was built in what's known as the Spanish Revival style, and a
Yeah.
lot of a lot of the state asylums were following what's known as the Kirkbride plan, where it looks like a big wing. It's like the hospitals trying to capture wind and stuff that comes that way, because the people on the sun decks would get some air and sun and stuff. So they had it like it was a big like half a like a C. But Camarillo wasn't built in that way. It was built completely different.
Okay.
And it's supposed to have been a minimum security facility, but some of the walls are almost like a foot thick. I mean, like this thick, and out of concrete, So, and the play, there, of course, it is now Cal State Channel Islands, but a lot of the buildings are still there. A lot of the old asylum buildings are still there, and they're still standing. They're not falling apart or anything like that, because they're heavily, they seem to be heavily fortified buildings, just for being a minimum security place. It's not made of wood or anything like that. They're they're formidable. And from what I've read, it was basically a place to put uh, people with mental conditions, and Of course, back then in the 30s and 40s, a husband can say his wife is hysterical and actually commit their wives to
Yeah,
mental
I heard
facilities,
about
like
that.
just even if they were tired of their wives, they do some trumped up charge, and they can actually put them in a mental asylum.
Tim, don't get any
So
ideas.
so there was a range of reasons why you'd go to an asylum. Say if I mean, it could be as much as someone arrested you and think, well, say if you were gay at that time and they arrested you and found out you were gay, so, oh, obviously you're mentally deficient. You're mental deficient, so you're going to Camarillo. You know, we're not going to keep you here in our all straight male jail. You know what I mean? So
So they
there
were
was a lot
just
of things
kind
like
of,
that,
yeah. No,
and
I was
there's a
gonna
lot of
say, oh, go ahead, sorry.
there's a lot of abuse
Yeah.
early on, and it, of course, continued all the way to the 60s, all the way to 1976 when they were investigating 75 deaths in the facility over the past few years before that. And this is the 70s before it started changing. There's a lot of changes to the way patients were treated were because of things that happened at Camarillo. And they did a lot. I mean, before they closed, they had a lot of innovations for mentally challenged patients and children. They had a lot of innovations that happened there, but there's also a lot of dark things happened there.
Yeah, I read that in 1947 they added the children and developmental disabilities. And I
Yeah,
guess there was a North complex and a South complex, which I don't know if you guys seen the divisions.
yeah, yeah.
And then
There's two big there's two big North Quad and South Quad and stuff like that. And they did have them for. I'm not sure if it was early on or not, but later on they separated the men from the women, and eventually they had to separate adults from children, just because obviously things could go on that they didn't want to go on there, you know. And that was just from the patients. There's been stories of the staff not acting very nice to the female patients, the children, and then there's other people that got abused there also.
I
You
think
know,
when any institution has an authority, there's always going to be, obviously we hear that in the prisons where there's going to be a power dynamic and an abuse just constantly happens that way,
yeah,
unfortunately. I did read that in 1969, the LPS Act was passed, and we all could be, well, I could be LPS certified to put somebody on a 5150 hold. You have to be trained for it. I don't know if you, Sabrina.
No, I'm not. No.
Yeah. So I guess they did that because before anybody could be thrown on a hold and taking their rights away, and they had to pass that act in
yeah,
'69, and it kind of probably was led from all the abuse you guys were, you mentioned.
During the research of this of Wayne's documentary, I had the privilege of being around a lot of the filming of it and research aspects, and we met a patient. And I don't want to give off too much because I want you guys to go watch the documentary. But we met a former patient, and he was in there. He was pretty upfront about his diagnosis and why he was put there. However, he had some really extreme stories that he expressed to us that he witnessed or went through his own self as a child, as a teen at Camarillo. And you could take it for what it's worth. If you ask me personally, I think there's a lot of truth to a lot of it. Some of the stuff and the names that he remembered, I don't know about all of that, but there was a lot of truth to it. And like you said, power dynamics, it's key. And for some reason, places like prisons and institutions that we always talk about are breeding grounds for these power dynamics. It's like it almost makes you wonder if people that have these ugly appetites that are abusive, like let's say in the Catholic Church, we're just going to say that for instance, because that's its own institution, to prison, to like a mental institution, if they almost seek out these kind of isolating careers that isolate other people so they can go about and commit these atrocities towards other people and, you know, falling under the radars, it makes one wonder, honestly.
Again, I didn't go into deep research of it, but I didn't really see a lot of the mainstream research talk about the abuses. So I know that with your research, you found out a lot about that.
There was a lot of abuses. There's even I have an article from the 70s when they were doing investigations. One guy, one intern choked another patient to death. They'd strap a patient. Matter of fact, this happened like a month or two ago, where they strapped somebody down, face down, on a gurney, and with their hands tied and stuff. I think that person died in police custody. I remember reading that somewhere, but this happened in Camarillo also. That person survived to tell us how they were treated. They would be strapped on a gurney face down overnight, strapped in and pushed into a room and locked up so they wouldn't be bothering anybody. There's a lot of suicides. I mean, I got another article where 1940s, 1949 or something, a patient hung himself in a closet with handkerchiefs. And I mean, there's a lot of stories. Matter of fact, the nurse Nadine Scola, she wrote this book about her experiences at Camarillo. It says it's a diary. What I'm thinking is she had to write it as a diary to get all the things out. Like, this is her diary and this is not a report. So maybe she won't get sued. I don't know. But a lot of it gels with real life things. For instance, she wrote about the governor of California visiting visiting Camarillo to look at the conditions, and she said they spent all day and night cleaning up the wards from all the urine, the feces in the hallways,
They
everything.
do that in the prisons too.
Yeah, and
All bad.
in the newspapers from the time, Governor Ronald Reagan visited Camarillo to look at the conditions. So a lot of things in real life gel with that book. So there's not, maybe some people might say, especially people that used to work at Camarillo, might say that book is a complete fiction, it's lies and this and that. A lot of the stuff that we found out later is exactly what was described. And I've met people that used to work at Camarillo, and a lot of them, we've never had abuses there. We've treated our patients with respect, and all that stuff is lies. There was no such thing as a horrible abuses and this and that. It's almost like I don't want to say a cult, but that's kind of mean, but that's what I was getting. And then when I'm at shows like selling the DVD for the documentary, I've met other people that work at Camarillo, and they pick up my documentary, and it's like they're looking at a ghost, you know. And she said, I used to work here. I said, oh yeah, did you see any ghosts? Because when I ask the people that get a little angry when we talk about abuses, there's no such thing as ghosts there. We've never seen anything like that. This is ridiculous. These people that I meet, you know, one-on-one at these shows, when I have the documentary, I said, do you see any ghosts? And they won't say anything. They'll just look at me and go like that, you know, and they'll buy the documentary. So it's kind of weird. Like there's this like this silence on a lot of big topics in Camarillo. A lot of the groups that work there want to maintain.
Yeah, no, I agree. And just this is not like the same kind of thing, but like I always say with the prisons, correctional officers are very loyal to, you know, the place they're working at. And then finally when somebody quits or they finally retire, they say the truth, but some people just are in denial, like they don't want to make it look bad or taint it or whatnot. And yeah, that's the worst.
Well, my thoughts on that prison institution, Camarillo State Mental Hospital, is that within itself, they almost victimize their own selves when they victimize. They may or may not, like, participate in victimizing the patients there or the prisoners at a prison. But when they don't speak up against it, it almost, they become the aggressor. They become someone who allows the abuse to happen, and then it abuses them in the same sense, because they're stuck with this. Something like that can never really leave your psyche. You're stuck with that for the rest of your life.
They,
So they are
they bring
delusional
it
in their
home.
own sense. They definitely, and that's why there's so much suicide rates and divorces and correctional and police officer kind of positions, because it's things that you can't unsee, and you can't like undo those things, And I don't want to go off topic too much, but I just thought I'd bring that up right there.
And
Well, this
ideally,
is
they wanted to make
I'm sorry.
no, just real quick. Ideally, they wanted to make it look like it was a little city. It had everything on the grounds of the hospital, right? Um, like a farming land and like all kinds of activities and stuff. I mean, ideally, maybe they had good intentions. It just kind of deteriorated, I'm imagining, and plus like stigma already on mental health. I could imagine if there's still stigma now, I could imagine back
Yeah.
then.
There was a Camarillo is kind of like a small city. They had their own farm, and it was to maintain the place also, that where they grew their own food and they had cows and things like that, and a dairy. Um, Matter of fact, in old Rancho Los Amigos here in Downey, it was called the LA County Poor Farm. They had the same thing going. They had a farm to help maintain the place. And later on in the 70s and 80s, and up to when they were closing, they had some of the mentally challenged kids. They would put things together for industry. Simple things like you buy at the 99-cent store or something, and they package it. They have the packaging. They put the stuff together. It's like it's something for them to do. It's something for them to remember and maybe help them. But then again, kind of getting like free labor, you know,
They
making these
still do
things
that
that
now.
they farm out to Camarillo, you know. So
The
on
PIA.
overall, all of this you, yeah. Well, forced sterilizations happen at Camarillo. Lobotomies against people's will happen at there. Things like that,
Like a living
some
zombie,
bad things happen there too. So
the
all the stuff we
Thorazine
talked about,
shuffles.
you could see why there's so much of a negative energy in the whole place, and probably still is there.
Did they shut it down because of that, or why did they end up shutting it down?
No, I think it was a cost measure, because the patients went down. There was like well over a couple thousand patients, and went down to like 800 patients or less during the waning years, because the from what I read, a lot of the medicine was helping patients that couldn't be helped before, and so medicines were allowing people to go back out in society or live with their families and not
Right.
stay at the hospital for the rest of their lives.
Yeah.
And it was basically a cost-cutting measure between Ronald Reagan and later Pete Wilson, the governor, and they started. I mean, this happened all over,
Yeah,
not
that's
just
exactly what I was
California.
gonna say. Around that time,
Yeah.
the mental health or the mental asylums, if you will, they started to on a decline, and then you have all these abandoned ones
Yes.
across the country.
Yeah, I guess there's pros and cons to that. I mean, not having to have somebody institutionalized forever because of mental health, but at the same time there was not a lot of great outpatient resources I heard about at the time, so a lot of people became homeless
You're right.
and didn't have nowhere to go. There's not that many backup once they got out of the hospital. So it was like, okay, you're out of the hospital, but then you're on the street.
Matter of fact, in Linda Vista Hospital, there are reports of patients being driven out and basically dumped on the street. They didn't have any room for them, and their families didn't claim them or anything. So patients were put out in the street in some cases. Not just
That
Linda Vista
still
Hospital, a lot of
happens.
hospitals in LA. Yeah.
Harbor,
Yeah.
UCLA, right where I live, they dumped this. They used to, for many years, they dumped this one specific lady in a wheelchair, and you could hear her screaming all hours of the night. Then she'd have
Oh
her
wow.
little Harbor UCLA gown on, and that's still a practice that they practice to this day.
Yeah, they used to dump people on Skid Row a lot too.
Yeah. People wonder how Skid Row could have gotten so bad. It's not only people coming from different states, coming here or being bused here. A lot of the times, people are, where are they going to go if they're been in a mental hospital all their life and then they're told to leave? What are they going to do? You know.
Yeah, yeah. And so I don't think there was enough
So you
resources
can
at
see why there's
all.
so
And
much, so much like a dark cloud over that place.
I feel like that I don't want to speak out on this, but the way that the land is, the mountains or the hills, if you will, and almost like it traps in the energy there. But it's very heavy. You could feel it just as you drive in, rather if it's day or night. And Doña Junta, what was your experience when you went the one time? Do you remember?
well, you mentioning what you just said right now reminds me of how we did the Tehachapi episode where you have to go through these creepy mountains. It's a little different than Camarillo, but it's still like that trapped energy in those creepy mountains. But um like Wayne said earlier, I did go in the dark, and I don't know why we went in the dark or it just got dark.
I think we were on our way back from Steven's house, if I remember
Oh,
correctly.
okay, that's what happened. Yeah, it was just maybe a random pit stop. So I didn't get to see it in a day. I wish I would have. I just always heard about it from, you guys and then watching the film, obviously, because I was around the time, the film just had premiered, right? 9 now 10 years ago, let's just say.
2014. Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow, it seems like a lifetime ago, and yet it seems like it was just yesterday.
Yeah, and I
Yeah.
wish I would have been able to see it in the day or maybe been more able to see the architecture closer or been intrigued because obviously back then I didn't have a Instagram. I wasn't researching or anything. I mean,
We
I
could
was still
still
interested in stuff.
go. I
Yeah,
mean, we don't
I
have to
just
go. We're not supposed to officially. We're not supposed to go inside the buildings, but we can
right,
go
and that's what.
outside the buildings. It's almost like it's a public. It's like a public park. You can walk all around outside of the university
Yeah, I
and
would like to
look at
go
all
in
the
the
old
daytime
abandoned
to
buildings
see.
that's still there. Yeah.
So how?
Uh,
Because to be honest, I barely remember, and then I only remember a little bit of like the university library, like Sabrina said earlier, the water fountain, and like a little bit of the Mission Revival style. But when you guys went to
has a bell
investigate,
tower.
I kind of remember that, but not really. But when you guys went, I know it was in a university, but was it like
It,
monitored? Was it guarded? Was it like completely abandoned? Did you guys have to sneak in? I mean, are you able to say that? Like, how did it look back then?
When we go there, it is patrolled by campus security, so you can't be obvious and like oh, we're gonna break into a window and pull a door open and go into these abandoned places we're not supposed to go. You can't do things like that. You got to respect, and a lot of people that are serious respect the place. No one that I've ever been with has ever broken in to the facility. If there's an unlocked door, we'll look in and maybe walk around and explore. But we've never made an entrance. You know what I mean? Or get a crowbar and breaking something in. We've seen evidence of it. Unfortunately, for the long, is what really was really cool. For the longest time, there was no graffiti in any of the buildings. I mean, there was nothing broken, but then that started to change over the years.
Was
There
it
was a
already a
lot of broken
university?
glass. Yes,
it was in
that was
transition.
1997. I didn't start doing this till 2010, and people were doing this like 2001. They were investigating right before it was in university. It started in 2000, 2002 when it was officially
Oh,
opened as
wow.
a university. Like a year or two before that, people were already walking around the abandoned buildings, and they were all wide open. They weren't
I'm
locked up.
surprised there wasn't more graffiti if it was
I am
abandoned
too, and
a long time.
I'm kind of glad it's not. You know, because
Yeah.
you just want to see it like you just want to see like it was. You know what I mean? I mean, there's a lot of dead pigeons and stuff that wasn't there when it was on operation, of course, but you don't want to see it destroyed. You know, I've seen, like, for instance, like I said before, Rancho Los Amigos, that place had walls kicked in and everything else, you know, and fires and all kinds of fires, and Camarillo didn't suffer that,
I think because 'cause
and
we're in LA.
probably, yeah, probably. So I forgot where I was going, but okay. You said how it looked when we were there. Um, like I said, it is patrolled as long as you walk around and don't, you know, look like you're obvious is what you're doing. Well, we've been stopped a couple times, and we're trying to capture ghosts for paranormal investigators, and they'll tell us, "Well, stay outside the buildings," and we sure will. And we we uh, we just don't make it obvious what we're doing, you know. And the funny thing is, from what I've heard, if the campus security does find out you're in the buildings, they will not go in the buildings. They won't tell us why they won't go in, but they won't go in after you.
Wow.
They'll yell into the hallway, "We're gonna send the dogs in if you don't get out of there. You better get out now." They won't come in after you though.
So they got creeped out.
Yeah.
You know,
And
when we were
another thing I
talking,
wanted to say is, I'm sorry. Well, one more thing I wanted to say is, a normal university, you'll see people on all hours of day and night walking around the university, you know, the campus. If you go to Camarillo, we can go tonight. It's like a ghost town because no one wants to be out there at night by themselves. Or if you do see somebody walking, it'll be in pairs, because people are, even to this day, students are freaked out, and they just don't want to be outside at night, especially around the old buildings.
Yeah, I think I remember you guys saying a while back, like, student reviews about the university. Now their dorms, like, where the buildings were, and they
Right,
they probably didn't know applying to that university and end up getting freaked out and stuff, like, I could imagine that.
right.
Go ahead,
so
Sabrina.
I wanted to ask you, Wayne, because I know I have a couple experiences my own self. What was the most alarming or the scariest experience you had in Cam?
Nothing exactly that happened to me. I was there when it happened, but I was, at first, the things that happened I thought were, say, for instance, there was one time we were there with a bunch of seasoned investigators, and we're standing around after we're doing our investigation. I've been filming for like 2 or 3 hours. I finally put my camera down, and that's when something happened. Because this investigator was standing at a doorway, and he was about to smoke. You know, he's out getting his smoke ready, and he happened to look over to his side, and he screamed like somebody in distress. Well, I don't want to say the old screamed like a woman, but he screamed like, "Ah!" And we jumped up, you know, and we had a bunch of female investigators with us, and they all screamed because he was screaming, and the rest of the guys got up, and I thought it was maybe a homeless person or someone attacking the guy in the hallway. There's somebody, a real. I wasn't thinking ghost, you know. And I had something with me, not a firearm, but I had it out because what is going on? And he was so distraught. He turned around and he hit his arm or shoulder on the door frame. So I thought he was being attacked. So we ran out there to catch him, and there's no one out there. And I said, "What happened?" And he said he saw somebody looked like in a male nurse uniform with red hair, giving him the most evil stare. I said, "Where'd you see this guy at?" And he pointed just like a doorway down the hall. And we went through the building looking for if anybody was there. And while we were doing, I noticed there's a lot of glass. Some people were breaking the fluorescent lights from the ceiling. There's a lot of glass all over the hallway. If someone would have ran away, we would have heard them crunching on the hall, down the hall. We looked down the entire building. We couldn't find anybody. So I brought this investigator. I said, "Okay, where did you see this person at?" So he showed me. So I stood him right there, and I was like maybe 2 feet from him, and I'm telling him, "Okay, man, I can't even see you. This is how dark it is in here, and you were over there, and I'm 2 feet in front of you. I can't even see your face. How did you see this person?" And he says, "I don't know, but he was right. He was right over right there where I'm standing, and I saw his face. He gave me a mean stare." So that's actually that same night. One of the female investigators that were with us have never been on an investigation before. So I guess we took her with us to for the experience, and we were sitting where we usually sit in that section of the building, and she said, "I be quiet, guys. I saw someone walk past the window." And I said, "What window?" And she pointed to the window. And I said, "You couldn't have seen anybody. We're on the second floor. There's nothing out there. It's just a window. You couldn't have seen anybody walk by." So then she was quiet for the rest of the night. But things like that happen. The only thing that ever happened to me was I seen those lights I told you about earlier, and I heard doors slam. Other than that, I never got touched. I mean, for instance, a lot of people I'm with are more psychically inclined. I'm not. So they're telling me they're seeing something running back and forth down the hallway. I went down the hallway. I was like, "If you're here, touch me. I want to experience it." I wasn't being a dick. I wanted to actually experience it. "If you're here, touch me right now." I walked down the hallway. I didn't feel anything, or maybe they just didn't want to touch me. So I didn't have a whole lot happen to me at Camarillo. And Sabrina, most of the things that happen to me happen when we're not investigating. We see things. I see things with you,
That's
or
always
I,
how it goes when
yeah,
investigating. I don't know why. It just always happens. Like the most to speak on that, one of the most scary experiences I had in Camarillo, or at least the way I felt, was when we went, the three of us, and when you were talking about it, Dona Junta, I was thinking about the time we went into the library and I had to use the restroom. I think you used the restroom before me, but we know
Yeah.
that like I always take longer because I take long for everything. And I was on the toilet and the only one in there, and then I was done and washed my hands, and I got this feeling of dread, and the energy like got sucked out from the bathroom, and it was a pretty freaky feeling. I remember that. I had completely forgot about that until you started talking about the library, and it made me snap and remember it. But I've had all kinds of strange creatures that are like not even
I remember the day we
humanoid
met.
creatures. The day we met, me and
I,
you.
I remember the day we met Stephen. The day we met Stephen Franco, our friend that is always a very long time
Uh-huh.
investigator at Camarillo as well. You said you went up to one of the buildings. You got pushed when walking down the stairs. You said you
I
felt someone
did.
push you. Yeah.
Everybody was inside, and I finally got up to go, and it was like dusk. And as I'm walking up the stairs, the sun's setting. And all of a sudden, I got to the top of the stairs and I didn't know where anyone was at. I did not have a flashlight, and I was trying to be smart and like, I don't have a flashlight. And I didn't have an iPhone back then because the iPhone wasn't like really a thing that, at least not how it is now. And so I had some rinky dink phone, and I was just like, I don't have enough light to like walk around. And that's like investigating 101, always have a flashlight, right? So I decided to turn around and come back down the stairs, and the stairs are kind of like, they're not spiral, but they kind of go in a square. So you go down a little bit, then it turns, and you go down a little bit, and it turns, and you go down a little bit. And as I was coming down the stairs, because I always hold on, even though I know it's gross, we don't like to hold on and have nasty hands, but I have to. Anyway, I remember going down like the last two flights and feeling like I'm pushed. Not terribly, but a little bit. and it was pitch black at that point. Like I had gone in when it was dusk, and by the time I came down, which couldn't have been more than 10 minutes, probably more like 7 or 5, like that time. Yeah. So it was, and I didn't go back in. And then that night we seen some strange creature, like shadows. And I was there when a woman got scratched. She said the same thing you said, like, if there's somebody here, touch me, because I can't stand it when people do that. And sure enough, she got a big old scratch mark on her back. And I was there witness to some spirit like pacing back and forth, and everyone said that that was like the mean menacing spirit. It was pretty creepy. It was like he was going to charge us like a bull and then would decide not to and turn around and like pace. And we saw it from a far glance, but it wasn't just me seeing it. It was like 5 or 6 of us seeing it in real time. I've had some little freaky experience. Even I think one time we went there, you and you got out probably to use the restroom or something. And I opted to stay in the car, and it was creepy. It's just and we got to recognize the fact it's on Chumash land. It's an area, I feel like there's something to do with the mountains and the way it's situated. It just holds on to the energy. And the best way I can describe it is I remember when you were recording Hotel Camarillo, and we were there with a bunch of people. And then there was this like whirlwind of leaves just going around, which is natural. It's not necessarily paranormal, but that's how I feel the energy is. There's so much stuff that's stuck there, probably because of what they experienced. And it just goes around like a twister. It's stuck in that location because of the way it's situated, at least like by land. That's kind of like my, small theory, or one theory.
And I know it's been several years since you guys gone back, right?
Yeah, about 5. I think we were last there in 2018.
Is it
Yes.
just over for paranormal purposes now? Like nobody goes, or is it just
Well,
what
for
happened?
me, I spent so much time there, especially because of doing the documentary. We were there almost every single weekend, filming for hours and hours and hours. And I'm kind of done with it. You know, I don't want to go back every single weekend. I'd like to visit again maybe some other time, but the last, I think I was last there 2014, after when the same year that I finished the documentary. I didn't go again until 2018 with a few people, and I remember before when we went, almost every time we'd get EVPs. Almost every single time a lot of them. This time when we went, I didn't get one EVP. There was no spirits talking that I captured, at least. There was no spirits seemed to be talking to us. So it seemed like unless they're guarded now, or there's nothing there, or maybe the energy dissipated for a while and then it'll come back some other time. I don't know, but it's not something. I mean, it's exciting because it's so active, but it's not somewhere I want to. Oh, we're gonna go to Camarillo again, huh? Can we just go somewhere else? That's
Yeah.
kind of like that.
I could see why you could get tired of it after a while, but do other people still go? Like, is it still a place people go
Eh,
to anyway? Like other people?
Yeah,
Or?
I'm hoping some actual investigators still go. The ones that I'm seeing pop up online now are people that are they want to be extreme for their TikTok videos. It seems to me, because they're finding demons and they're being slapped and everything else left and right, and oh my god, and this and that, and they're finding smudges on windows saying it's a little child huddled in the corner. It's just a smudge on a window. No one's even bothering to. It seems to me, I don't want to keep saying things that are actual facts that I don't know about because I'm not there. It seems to me people aren't trying to debunk what they're capturing before labeling it paranormal anymore.
Yeah, and I think that we see that maybe with the younger generation because remember, like now everybody's a YouTuber. You know how I sent you the YouTube video on the kids going to Queen Mary and all
Yeah,
these exaggerations and blah blah blah.
yeah.
But I feel like maybe that's kind of what maybe the up and coming or whatever you want to call them, investigators or people interested, are not very serious about it.
It kind
I
of
don't know.
makes it kind of makes the legitimate stories that you have of different places look silly because, oh, I just saw something last week that kids found a demon chasing them down the hallway at Queen Mary, and then so your legitimate stories, or I keep trying to do, I keep trying to do, say things that are my stuff is much better than your stuff. I shouldn't be doing that, but it just seems like the stories that are mellow are kind of brushed aside by the people being chased by a ghost with wearing a blanket running down the hallway. It just seems silly now. The newer
Yeah.
stuff.
And it's probably because, again, instant gratification, clout chasing, getting people to look at your videos and all that. It's just very different.
Yeah, matter of fact, that the things I have in Hotel Camarillo, there was one investigator that's went there for 10 years, and a lot of Hotel Camarillo is based on this 10 years worth of videos and audio recordings that he has, and it's not just based on a week. We went there one Saturday and we caught 15 demons chasing us out of the buildings. This is like over a 10-year period, and different investigators having different experiences over the years. I don't want people to think you just walk into Camarillo and suddenly it's gonna be like Ghostbusters, and you're gonna be chased down all the buildings by spirits, trying to get you. Sometimes it's boring. It's very boring to be an investigator. A lot of the times you could sit there for 2 or 3 hours and with your recorder, and then what color is an apple again, and just trying to get something to happen. And sometimes things don't happen, but that's that's being that's being part of an investigator, though. Some days you have things that are really exciting for maybe 5 minutes out of the 3 hours you're there. That's how, a lot of the ways that's how it goes.
No, that makes sense. Like, you're not always going to get some crazy blow up or something like that. So,
You
yeah,
know,
that'll be interesting to do one day. But if you want to share about the Eagles song, because I mean, everybody knows that song, and what's the connection with that?
uh, I named uh, I named my documentary Hotel Camarillo based on the song Hotel California, because there's been a rumor that Hotel California was based on Camarillo, because one of the members of the Eagles spent time there, not exactly as a patient, because they also had a drug rehab program there. So the rumor is he spent some time there, and they made the song Hotel Camarillo. There's a lot of things that match the song, like the long road getting there, the bell tower. You could check out any time you like, but you could never leave. Things like that. And the other thing is, a lot of repeat investigators notice when we go there or when we're leaving, the song Hotel California would come on the radio. And of course,
Oh yeah.
that song is famous. They play it all the time, of course. But the times, almost every time we leave or come, that song would be playing as we're driving in
That's
there.
funny.
And so that's, for paranormal people, that's our connection. For the Eagles themselves, they said it's completely not true. It's about the excesses of living in California and Los
So
Angeles,
somebody asked the
and that's all.
Eagles?
That's all the song is talking about. Oh yeah, because the rumor is so persistent.
Okay.
Um, they asked the Eagles. They said, "No, no, that's ridiculous." I think I don't know if that. Well, at that time, when rock stars would do crazy things, they were able to cover it up, like in the '70s and stuff.
Right.
Like that one guy from my favorite band, Kiss. He bought a DeLorean when it just came out and smashed it up. He smashed up a couple of cars. One time he cut up his face and he couldn't wear his makeup, and they covered that up. We didn't find out that happened until years later. So a lot of things that, if someone had to spend rehab, like for instance, another interesting point is Metropolitan State Hospital here in Norwalk took a lot of the patients from Camarillo when Camarillo closed, it took them there, and some of them might still be there if they're still alive. But back then, they also had a drug treatment program, and Bela Lugosi spent time there, and they were keeping it quiet until Bela Lugosi wanted to talk to the media, saying, "Oh yes, I'm cured, this and that." So he let everybody know he was in a mental hospital for drug rehab.
Yeah, and
So
Metro from what? Because I had done
Metropolitan
some. Yeah, I've been doing
Metro.
some research on that, and it's
Oh yeah,
more.
it's near those youth facilities that you were looking
Yeah,
at. Yeah.
SRCC, which we mentioned many times before. A lot of the patients from Metro were sent to SRCC during COVID, so they could, when the spike was going up, they kept non-COVID patients over there. I don't know if they finally stopped that, but it is considered more of like a state prison as far as like a lockup.
Hmm.
Um,
Well, just get back to the main point. The Eagles say it's not true. Everybody else thinks it's true about the Hotel California song.
it's a good theory though.
Yeah,
Anything
yeah.
else from you, Sabrina?
I would just like to let all of our loyal listeners and viewers and new ones, I'd like to say Camarillo is State Mental Hospital is a cautionary tale. Remember, when you go in these old buildings or any buildings, we really don't know the history until we research. You could be sitting on a ghost. You could be right next to a ghost. We don't know. So always respect the building and don't all automatically assume you know what it is. Because now we have kids that are like my daughter's age. My daughter is off at university, not at Cal State Channel Islands, I promise you. But there are kids living there in those buildings on that campus. And just a cautionary tale of that these buildings are more than just the facade.
Right.
Yes, and definitely Wayne. I know that the documentary is 9 years old now, but definitely share for people that are do want to look it up, and we'll put all the links and stuff as well. But like just offhand, where could people look it up or find your stream it or whatever they could watch
Uh,
it or get it from you?
on my Instagram bio, there's a link tree that has all interviews I've done here at Beyond the Facade and other places, and also links to the movies. And there you find them on Amazon Prime if you don't want to just do that. Go on Amazon Prime and look up Hotel Camarillo and my first documentary, Night Stalkers. And they're free. If you have Amazon Prime, they're free. If not, it's like about $2 to rent or something like that. But and if you guys do watch it, I'd really appreciate if you left a review. Hopefully a positive one, but leave whatever review you want to leave. But it helps. It helps if you leave a review.
Yeah. Any future plans for future projects that you could reveal? If not, then
I
that's cool.
started a third documentary in 2016. I was going to be just about the California missions because everybody's telling me stories about that, and I waited for people to give me their evidence, and people were having a hard time finding stuff. So I kind of after a year or so, I kind of dropped that, and I was trying to think of something else. But our friend Steven has a lot of interesting takes on the California missions, obviously from the Native Americans that suffered in those places. And I really want to get him. I got to get Steven on camera in a documentary. He is awesome. The stories he tells, the way he tells it, and his personality, and he has a different take as an investigator. He doesn't have to make you believe in spirits because Native Americans, for the most part, I don't want to speak for everybody, of course, they have a culture where they live with spirits. They don't have to prove to anybody that they're spirit. Of course they're spirits. So he's got a
Yeah,
very, very different take than what regular paranormal investigators have.
that would be
So
interesting
I
if you
got
could
to get him
interview
on a
him.
documentary.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
What about you, Sabrina? Any last commentary?
I say next year on Hotel Camarillo's 10th anniversary, we make a pact to have like a 10-year viewing party or some kind of bullshit at Camarillo. It's not that far, and it's a nice drive. Might as well do it, and we'll be listening to
Yeah.
the Eagles on the way there.
Yes,
Okay, yeah,
that'd be good to
definitely.
have. Maybe some of the students that are interested can see it.
Oh
That
my
maybe haven't
god,
seen
that
it.
would okay, listeners, you guys are interested, we're gonna make a party. We're gonna make a like a whole get together. What was the thing that we used to do back in the day? Like the meetups. Let's have a meetup, guys. A year
Exactly.
from now. A year from now. 10-year
Let's do it.
anniversary.
I'll leave it all up to you, Sabrina.
Yeah, you're the planner. So thank you everybody for listening, and we'll be adding some photos, and a little bit of sneak peeks, but definitely watch the movie to get the full take on it. And if you want to follow us again, the our podcast page is on Instagram, Beyond the Facade Podcast. You could follow me on Swap Chronicles, and they could say their handles.
Observing blah, blah, blah.
You're
So
tongue
many
tied
bloopers.
today.
Because I'm sick. So many bloopers. Anyway, Observing Spooks and Other Vices, or Sabrina the Grown Up Witch on Insta.
And I'm
Okay.
Mr. Poe just about everywhere. Mr. Poe or Mr. Poe's Morgue. I have MrPoe'sMorgue.com that maybe one of these days I'll update so it'll be a better place to visit with all the links and everything, but I just get
Yes.
lazy on things like that.
No,
So
it's hard to keep up with stuff. I hear you. And Wayne has been with us on discussions before. We talked about the Pasadena's bridge, the suicide bridge.
Linda
We have
Vista.
Linda Vista, and we have a few other things we want to discuss with him for future episodes. But this kind of just came to Sabrina. We're like, we need to talk about this. I mean, it's obviously architecturally significant, paranormally significant, and you guys have a great connection to it. So I'm glad that we thought of making it an episode. So thank you everybody for participating, and again, for everybody else, follow us, and we'll see you guys next time.
Bye,
thank you guys for inviting
everyone.
me again.
No
Yes, thank you
problem.
for coming. It's always fun.
Bye
See
bye.
y'all.
See ya.
Bye.